Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Feminine as Fuck. I am your host, Monica Yates, and I have just dipped into my luteal phase, so excuse me if I mumble over my words sometimes. If you know your hormones, you know that we aren't as good as communicating in our luteal phase because we have less estrogen and more progesterone. So I'm going to try my best. But as I spoke to you guys about in one of the last episodes about the Busy Woman's Guide to Cycle Syncing, is that I do not revolve my life around my cycle because for me, that just wouldn't be sustainable. And I actually think it would cause me way more harm than good. So I do my best, but by no means am I perfect. And I'm not trying to be perfect with that at all either. Okay, so today's episode is going to be a fucking juicy one because we're talking about bloating. And I know that I am not the only one that has suffered in the past with some horrendous effing bloating, especially when we are stressed. And you know what is the most frustrating with bloating? It's when you feel like you can't figure out what is actually causing the effing bloat. So what I am intending for today's episode is for you to leave this episode feeling like, aha, I know why I am getting bloated, or I have some inkling of things that I can now dive into. We have some sunscreens, some sun leaks coming in on my left, which we will love and appreciate. Thank you, Mother Nature. And I'm going to dive into this and try and be snappy for you guys and straight to the point so that you can, please don't drink my water, Jelly. You have a bad habit of doing that. I think I've showed this like a very long time ago on my Instagram, but sometimes Jelly will just put his head in my glass of water on the floor. And I'm like, it's not your water bowl. He's about to do it. So let's get into it. The first thing that I want to bring up is something that I was explaining to actually a one-on-one client just recently. Oh my God, butter. And that is that often when you go and you have like a health issue, right? And you go to a doctor, is that they're only looking at one area. They're not looking at multiple areas. And when we're looking at something like stress, gut, skin, any of those kind of issues, often the things that are causing issues might not be the thing that you think, right? Let's say, for example, you're having major adrenal issues because you're burnt out. Yes, support your adrenals, but your immune system could actually be playing a way bigger role than you think, for example, on your adrenals, or your gut health could be playing a bigger role, right? Like sometimes we immediately assume that for our skin, we have to just heal our gut, but it could actually be your immune system, for example, or it could be your endocrine system, or it could be your nervous system. So I want to remind you that whilst talking about gut stuff and bloating, ladies, I will also be dropping in other things. Do not disregard them. And I shouldn't just say ladies. This would also be a really good podcast to share with the men in your life because they will often, they will also heavily benefit from it. And this light leak is so intense, but we are totally vibing with it. Okay, so I'm going to go through some of the energetic reasons why you might be struggling with bloating. Now, the bloating can come from a whole host of gut issues, right? It could come from you being constipated. It could come from you not digesting things properly. It could come because you have IBS. It could be because of stress, right? There's a multitude of different things. So I'm going to kind of go through a list of many different reasons why you could be having these gut issues. But when it comes to things like constipation or IBS or digestive issues, they can be like more specific. So this is general. And I don't want you to think, oh, this is fucking general. This is shit. No, I want you to be appreciative that I'm saying this is general because there's way too many blanket statements thrown out there these days when it comes to health things. And whilst I'm so glad that the conversation around health and wellness is a really big one, I want you to also be aware that just having these blanket statements can mean that you are missing really key information, not just for your individuality, but also so that you're doing something right. Like I've talked about before of the whole like cycle syncing or tracking your cycle. Like there are some key bits of information that often just get missed because people that don't fully understand this or haven't fully studied it or actually learnt it properly, they miss those key components because they're just regurgitating what the other influencer said. So let's just remember that, okay? So firstly, especially if you are struggling with digestion, there could be something around you not feeling like you can digest life as it is, right? So think about the different parts of our body. They're always communicating with us. So is there some part of life that you feel like you cannot digest very well? If you are feeling triggered or unsafe or insecure or stressed or overwhelmed, even by the smallest of things, that's going to set your nervous system off, right? Which is then going to cause you to throw out your digestive system. So we're talking about, actually, I'm not going to talk about stress yet because I don't want to confuse you guys. Let me just talk about the energetic components first. If you are feeling like you are being self-demanding, right? You're wanting things your own way. You're feeling stressed when you're not. That can then be held in your stomach. Like stubbornness can really be held in your stomach because it creates tightness and constriction in your body. And you got to think about it like if you want smooth bowel movements, there needs to be movement and flow and ease in your body, not restriction and tightness, right? And stress. If you are feeling stuck in guilt or limitation or worry or fear or trauma or limiting beliefs, that can be held in your gut. Right. And by the way, ladies, and men, this doesn't mean that you're feeling this all the time. You could be feeling it one day, and that's why you're bloated that day because you've eaten the same as you did yesterday, but today you're really bloated. But you've had a day where you've been really, you felt very limited by your job, for example, or you felt really guilty about something. If you are having or you've had a really hard time expressing yourself to other people, that can be causing your constant gut issues or the fact that you were just bloated today or something. And then the last one, and I'm going to go through more with constipation, is if you are feeling rejected or like you got punched in the stomach, that's also going to affect your digestive system and just your gut overall, right? That can be causing this inflammatory response, which then can cause leaky gut and a multitude of other things, right? Can you see Butter right now? Because if you're watching the YouTube, you probably can. He just is the cutest little nugget in the world. Like that is a reason to watch the video just for the dogs. Okay, so when we have digestive issues, it can arise due to fear of digesting or stomaching a certain situation, or even digesting or stomaching past circumstances, right? If you are someone that identifies with being very stubborn, or maybe there is stubbornness around the fact that you don't want to accept what is happening currently in your life, or maybe you are feeling that you are being suppressed and therefore there's this resistance coming up in regards to your current life and acceptance around things, or like you're holding yourself back, all of those kind of things you're going to hold in your stomach. So the overarching umbrella, ladies and gentlemen, is that we hold the energy of safety in our stomachs. So all of these things that I've mentioned are kind of under that umbrella of safety. So when there is this feeling of unsafety in your body, we're going to hold it in our stomach. That's why there's comfort food, right? Comfort food makes us feel the comfort that we're craving in our stomach. That can also relate to you if you are an emotional eater, right? You are eating for comfort because you're not feeling safe. And remember that you might consciously feel safe, but unconsciously, you don't feel safe. You might dig for fucking days and be like, what am I not feeling safe about? And nothing comes up because it could be something that happened 10 years ago that you are really not aware of, but it is there and it's being held in your stomach, right? So when you're holding on to guilt or shame or any of those heavy emotions, they are held in our stomach. And this is why, you can keep eating the same thing every day for a week. And one week there's no problem, but the next week on a Wednesday, you are in pain because you're so bloated. It's not about the food. It's about something else. Now, this doesn't mean that bloating never has to do with the food because we're going to go into that. There is a huge component, obviously, I'm assuming you guys would know this, around bloating and food and your gut bloating and food in your gut. Yeah, in regards to food. It's not just about energy. So I'm going to talk about the energy component, then I'll go into the food component in case any of you are like, I don't want to listen to the food thing because I got that down pat. Then you can just jump off the episode, right? I want everyone to kind of get what they need. And as a reminder, if you haven't already seen, please leave a written review. When you guys share the episode, when you leave a review, and don't forget that you get that little goodie when you leave a review, the details are below. When you do these things, it is a value exchange because let me just paint the picture so everybody kind of gets this. And by the way, I love doing my podcast. I'm not doing this to like guilt trip you or anything. I'm doing this because a lot of the time we don't know how much effort goes into behind the scenes of something because we don't see it. Like you don't know that it takes approximately 17 hours to do the full process from recording to editing all the way through to all the social media to scheduling for every episode. 17 hours. That's a lot of hours, right? You don't know that right now it's 6:54 p.m. and I'm doing this episode because I'm not going to have time tomorrow, and then I'm not going to have time Friday, and I need to get this done so that my team can edit it for it to be put in the schedule. But I've already had a bunch of clients and calls today, but I'm kind of pushing through because I need to get this out. I'm sharing this with you guys because so much time and effort and energy and thought goes into every episode. You know, I look at the analytics, I'm looking at what do you guys want more of, less of, etc. So when you give tests, when you give reviews, when you share the episode with other people, when you tell me like, hey, Monica, I love this episode. Can you do another episode on these kind of things? When you give that feedback, it is really, really, really helpful. And it's helpful because growth allows more people to then follow this podcast, to listen to the podcast, to get help, to find my business, etc. And so I really appreciate it when you guys share, when you leave reviews, when you throw it in your group chat, when you talk about it at your dinner parties, all those fun things. Okay. So if you are struggling with constipation, right? And again, there can be a food component, but the energy component is important. This can be energetically because you are holding on to negative emotions, or you may have this like unconscious fear around letting go of trauma or letting go of anything really, because you don't want old shit to surface again. Like, raise your fucking hand if you are sometimes afraid of doing the work because you don't want to have to feel it. It's uncomfortable to feel things. But if you don't feel things, if you don't heal things, they are going to continue to hold you back. And you can either get to 70 years old and look back and be like, damn, I wish I fucking healed these things because I would have had a way better life and these things wouldn't have held me back. Or you can continue to be held back by things that do not need to hold you back, right? So when there's constipation, it can be because you don't want old shit to surface again. No pun intended, right? And so you don't want to deal with it. When we have learned how to survive and keep ourselves safe during the challenging times, we often don't want to let go of the survival skills that you have essentially perfected, because if you were to let them go, it would mean that you have to face the past. And you don't want to have to face the past because you don't want to have to deal with those things. You want to shove it down and keep going. And whilst that can seem like a really good idea, it's not a good idea when it's manifesting as physical issues, because you're going to have to face it, or you're going to start to experience extreme frustration with your body. And who's to blame? You. You're not listening to the signals that your body's giving you, right? If your body is giving you signals, if you're having skin issues, which I'm doing an episode on next week, if you're having skin issues, if you're having gut issues, if you're having constipation, if you're having period pain, if you're getting chronic headaches, these things aren't just like, oh, I need to go to the doctor and get a pill. It's like, no, there is something happening. And there is an energetic reason to all of these things. And that doesn't mean that it's necessarily always an energetic thing, because it really could be like, you're not sleeping enough, you're not drinking enough water, like they could like take this supplement, whatever. But when we don't tune in with our bodies, we don't even give ourselves the chance to connect to ourselves. We don't give ourselves the chance of, I know what is best. We are continuously giving the power to somebody else and then being like, oh, this is your problem. When actually it could be, but it also could not be. You are your best judge. And so this is why I'm doing these healing classes, right? For healing the energetic issue around your gut stuff and healing the energetic issue around your skin stuff, because I want you to leave that class and being like, oh my God, I got the message from my body, right? I faced it, I healed it, and now I know for future what the trigger is, what actually causes my breakouts, what actually causes my eczema, what actually causes my constipation. Because when you know that, when you then next time get bloated, it's not this like, oh my God, I fucking hate this, like I can never figure out the answer. It's like, oh, this makes sense. Let me do the things that are going to counteract what my body's currently feeling, the actual root, not what you think the root is, right? The actual root, so that I can bring myself back into equilibrium. Because I sometimes get bloated randomly and I know what my root trigger is, right? And so when that thing goes off and my stomach gets bloated and hurts, I know what I have to do to bring myself back. Okay. And why this is important for you guys to know, and I want to like throw some stats out there so that you realize, one, you're not alone, but two, this is a serious issue. 7 to 10% of the world have IBS. And ladies, it is 1.5 times more prevalent in young women than men, right? We actually have a larger digestive system than men, funnily enough. I'm like, how much more can we fit in there? A fucking womb, a fetus? Like, come on. Between North America and Europe, Crohn's disease affects more than 5.2 million people. Not okay. Not okay. And when we look at Crohn's, what is the number one cause of Crohn's? Fucking stress. And when we think of stress, it's like, oh, well, these kids aren't stressed, right? Because they don't have a job. Stress isn't about work all the time. Stress is about what's happening in your family and your relationships and your home and your friendships and your school and just your body's general sense of everyday safety. And then we look at just bloating in general. 15 to 30% of US adults, right? So we can say this is probably around the same for maybe Europe. And actually, Europe's probably way better because you guys eat way better and have a way more balanced lifestyle. But let's just say for the US, right? 15 to 30% of adults suffer from bloating in any given week, more commonly women, again, right? So about a third of the population get bloated once a week, let's say. That's a lot, right? Especially when you're eating well. That's when it's most frustrating. That is when it's most frustrating, right? When you're eating the right things, you're doing the right things, and you're getting fucking bloated. So women are more prone to gut issues, right? We do get bloated more often, and it really can mess with our mood, our mental health, our confidence levels, how sexy we feel, all the good things, right? And, you know, I don't know about you guys, but like when we're having a bloated situation, the last thing I feel like doing is having sexy time because I am not feeling sexy in that moment, right? So I want to go through just some of the main things that you guys can make sure that you're doing for dietary things. And then I also want to answer some questions that you guys have left about bloating as well in this episode. And I'm going to do a Q&A on my Instagram. It might have already happened now, so you can go back and check if it has. Otherwise, it'll be coming up, and you guys can throw in any other questions that you have about gut stuff because I want to answer these for you guys because I know how debilitating it can be when you're not getting answers for your gut, because when you're bloated, it's like everything else goes out the fucking window, and it makes sense because 90% of our serotonin is made in our gut. So when our gut microbiome's off, when we're feeling bloated, it throws everything else off, especially our mood, right? Now, I was saying before, like, how does stress influence your gut? And vice versa, before I go into the food. So I want you guys to think about it like this. Everything is combined. Our body is this intricate system where everything is throwing out or balancing everything else. So when we are stressed, how it affects our gut is our nervous system, right? So think about, you get stressed about something, your nervous system gets jacked, it gets stressed, right? And because our nervous system and our vagus nerve is connected to our gut, what happens is the stress response affects the digestive system, right? Because when we go into the stress response and we're in this fight or flight, the blood rushes away from our gut. Do we need to, when we're fighting a saber-toothed tiger, be digesting food? No, because you shouldn't fucking be eating the food, right? Because you're busy running away from a tiger. So all the blood goes away from our digestive system. Right, this is very simple terms. It goes away from your digestive system, causing you to then not be able to digest food properly, right? It can also cause an imbalance in unhealthy bacteria in your gut as well, like pathogens, right? There's been a lot of research to show that people that have a lot of stress in their life have a very imbalanced gut microbiome, which then also obviously causes digestive issues. When we look at stress, for example, stress upregulates your inflammatory response, right? So your body becomes more inflamed because of the stress, and the stress is causing all of these free radicals to be running around in your body, getting your body inflamed, right? If your body is inflamed and in this stress response, good luck digesting any food. But you eat food anyway, right? And then when you eat this food, your body's already inflamed, it's already stressed, already can't digest it. The food goes down into your digestive system. And let's say this food isn't a really healthy food, and it also then causes another inflammatory response. And maybe you're a little bit allergic to it, let's just say. Or another situation, that's going to be like an and/or, because your gut microbiome is completely off. When you eat this food, it actually causes a bit of leaky gut. And things like dairy and gluten and vegetable oil, they're all going to cause, not to mention glyphosate, all the pesticides, the quote unquote natural flavors, all that crap, artificial colors, they're also all going to cause permeability in your gut lining, right? Also called leaky gut. So when you have this leaky gut, right, these little particles of food then go through your gut lining, which they're not meant to do, through your gut lining into your bloodstream, causing more of an inflammatory response, and you're just a hot fucking mess. So you are bloated. You may be storing extra weight on your body because you are inflamed as fuck. You probably feel puffy. Your mood is completely off. Your libido is probably down. Your hormones are getting thrown off. And I'm just starting to paint this like massive cascade domino effect. I mean, your immune system is going to be struggling because right now your immune system is trying to fight off all this inflammation. So then when your partner's sick, it's like, oh God, shit's about to hit the fan because your immune system can't fight off that bug because it's trying to fight off something else. And this is where it's like, I am a big believer because I've just seen this over and over and over again in myself, but also in clients for like 6 years. When you have your nervous system under control, when you have your stress under control, everything else in your life gets better because the cascade effect from your stress is monumental and undeniable, right? So that's just kind of a little bit of an example of how stress then affects your gut and then the bloating and all these kind of things. Remembering that the stress may not be conscious, right? You could be doing the meditation, etc., but it's not about the meditating. That's helpful. It's about the fact that in that moment, when you heard that sound or when you smelt that thing or when the person said that comment, your body got triggered and went into a stress response. It doesn't matter if you meditate afterwards. Yes, it'll bring your fight or flight back down, but it still happened. So to kind of go on from this, another really important piece, and this kind of ties in with the food that we're about to get into, is that a lot of us don't cook anymore, right? We order in. And why this is a problem is not just because it's unhealthy food cooked in God knows what, gotten from God knows what, etc., etc. You don't know the ingredients. That's obvious. What people don't know is that when you are cooking and there is smells, these smells cause your digestive system to start to get going, right? When you're smelling the food that you're cooking, right? And so even in a restaurant, you kind of get this a little bit if you can smell the food, is that your digestive system is getting prepared to eat. So your digestive enzymes are revving up and your body is getting ready to break down the food. This is also why sitting in front of the TV is really bad, because for a lot of us, when we sit in front of the TV, we're not consciously aware that we're eating. Our brain does not know that we're eating. And so our digestive enzymes haven't revved up enough to break down the food. And that's why you'll then get bloated or an upset stomach after you eat. It's not because you can't eat that food. It's because your body wasn't prepared to get a load of food dumped on its digestive system. It takes your digestive system, funnily enough, about 20 minutes to warm up before it's ready to get food from you, right? So especially if you're about to have like a large quantity with a bunch of different things. So when you are cooking and you're cooking, generally speaking, for at least 20 minutes, your digestive system is warming up to like, okay, food is coming. So when you have been cooking, let's say then you go down and eat to the sofa, sit down on the sofa and eat in front of the TV, it's maybe not as bad as if you ordered takeout because your digestive system is aware food is coming. But the issue then comes in this situation. I'm like, okay, there's digestive enzymes to break down the food. The issue that then can happen for you that can cause the bloating and also then the eating issues, right? Especially like overeating, is that if your brain is not aware, I am eating food, it doesn't register, I am eating food, which is why you then don't get full. It needs to literally, like you need to be seeing and registering, I am eating food for your body to actually get full. And a lot of us just sit and look at the TV and we're just shoving food in. You couldn't even tell me what was your last mouthful of food because you wouldn't remember because you're not consciously aware of what you're doing. This is why when we go to Europe and it's this slower food situation and we're looking at what we're eating and we're having conversations, obviously the quality of the food is far superior in Europe compared to like America, let's say. Australia also has way better food. So that's like one side of it. But the second side of it is that you are aware of the food that you're eating. This is also why a lot of us will find that we eat less at a restaurant because we are aware of the food that we are eating. We are looking at the food, right? Unless you're super absorbed in the conversation, you are consciously aware of it. Okay. So leaving that there, let's get into some of the main things that I love to do for gut health that I would be recommending for you if you're not already doing it. Number one is obviously eliminate gluten, right? So like I was saying before with the leaky gut, the walls of your intestine, they act as this important barrier, right, between your gut and your body. However, what gluten does is it causes the tight junctions to become loose, and your gut then gets these leaks, right? And these leaks cause these inflammatory issues that I was describing before. And when you have too much inflammation in your body, welcome to diseases. The end, right? So you don't want these junctions to open and particles to go through, because then that causes this intestinal permeability, and it causes a whole cascade of problems, because these food particles should not be going into your bloodstream, right? So cut out gluten, except in Europe, right? For the most part, cut it out. Obviously, most of us do better gluten-free. And in fact, the protein that is gluten, right? Gluten in itself is actually a protein, is that none of us are actually able to digest gluten, right? When people think, why can I digest gluten when I'm in Europe? It's in a more whole form. It's not as processed, so it's a little bit easier for your body to digest, but it still isn't good. I mean, just the FYI, Italy has the highest amount of celiac people in the world. They eat a lot of pasta, a lot of carbs, a lot of wheat, right? So wheat, gluten, not good for your stomach. Get rid of it. Even if you're like, oh, I'm like 80% gluten-free, try being 100% gluten-free for 3 months and then tell me how you feel, because that's when the magic happens. Like being 80%, it's like, no. When you are 100%, then you feel the glow. Then you feel the vitality of really anything that you're cutting out that's causing this inflammatory response. The next thing is dairy. So the thing in dairy that's actually the problem for a lot of adults is casein, right? So obviously the dairy that is found in America predominantly is full of shit. It's mass produced, and a lot of the nutrients have been stripped of the milk, which means that we're not actually really benefiting our body with that much. If you are, for example, a lot of pregnant women will crave milk, crave dairy, crave cheese. Eat it, right? You're actually able to digest dairy when you are pregnant completely differently. Your gut microbiome changes, which is really interesting. And often you're craving the K2 in the milk, because that's going to help the baby's organs and spinal cord develop. That's why that happens. So, which is just like fascinating. I think that like literally your body is like, I need K2. I want dairy. But please make sure that you're getting a really high quality dairy for cheese, for any of those things. If you can get raw, that's amazing. Get organic, get grass fed, get all of the good things. Now, if you are like, I cannot cut out dairy, Monica, that is literally my fucking life. Here's the solution. Cut out milk. Cheese, for example, eat the hard cheeses, don't eat soft cheeses. Hard cheeses have less lactase in them. And lactase can also cause a lot of bloating and gut disruption as well. So that's really important. Again, try it for 3 months. Notice how you feel, reintroduce it. Maybe you can tolerate small amounts of it, but you're not having it in this large quantity, right? Just like anything, if you're going to eliminate majority of things that are causing gut issues, but you bring back one little thing like dairy that's maybe not causing that much disruption for you, it could be okay. But if you're keeping a little bit of gluten, a little bit of dairy, a little bit of vegetable oil, a little bit of all these things, you're not actually, jelly, you're not actually going to feel the effects that you are desiring to feel. The last main one, get rid of vegetable oil. I did a whole podcast on it ages ago. I probably should do another one of vegetable oil and like how I eat out and stuff. I know that you guys have kind of asked for that. Inflammatory foods like vegetable oil is literally poison. It will create complete gut dysbiosis, which is basically your gut microbiome being completely off center. And therefore it will cause more leaky gut, right? Your immune system will also be activated as a result of the leaky gut and just the inflammation, all of free radicals that is brought into your body by eating this vegetable oil. And sooner or later, your body will not be functioning the way that it should be. Now, I know you guys ask, how the fuck do you eat out, Monica? I'm just going to write this down afterwards. I'm going to do an episode of how I eat out, how I travel healthy, etc. So that I can give you guys these tips, because no, vegetable oil isn't completely unavoidable these days, which I hate. It's also why I love traveling to Europe so much, because it is so much easier to avoid vegetable oil there, because they drown themselves in olive oil. And I don't know any pure Italian, French, etc. chefs that would be like, yes, I want to cook in vegetable oil. No, they prioritize the food quality way too much for that, and the taste of the food way too much for that. So hang tight. I will do an episode on that, I promise. The last thing that I want to bring in, no, let me say one more thing. Okay, a few more things for your gut. Bone broth is going to be really helpful for sealing your gut lining if you don't have a histamine intolerance. Okay, bone broth. If you just search like bone broth concentrate, that's an easy thing to use for bone broth at home. Just make sure that it's grass fed, organic, grass finished, all the good things. The second thing that I love doing is ginger shots. I make ginger shots on a regular basis. I make a huge batch and I freeze a bunch, and then I have it in my fridge whenever I need it. I love ginger shots for like a whole host of reasons, the anti-inflammatory benefits, but mostly for me, it's not actually about the inflammation. It's just that it helps my body to digest food, right? Ginger is incredible for digestion. If you suffer from nausea for any reason, that's also really going to help. Or if you find that after you eat certain foods, your body finds it a bit tough to break it down, let's say cruciferous vegetables, for example, taking a ginger shot before and possibly even after could be really, really helpful for you. It's also just a nice, healthy practice to get into. And the more that you are like in a routine of healthy practices, the better it's going to feel for you and the easier it is going to be to maintain. So ginger shots, bone broth, sleep. Do not underestimate the power of sleep. When your melatonin is dysregulated because you're not sleeping well or you're not sleeping on a regular cycle, that also throws off your gut, right? Not only does it throw off your gut, when you're not sleeping enough, it throws off your hunger signals in your brain, causing you to eat more food, causing you to crave more sugar, and then you eat it and that causes gut issues, right? Like don't tempt yourself, don't do it, right? When you're sleeping, your body can repair itself. If you're not sleeping well enough, your body can't repair itself. If you're not sleeping well enough, guess what? You get your body stressed out. Your immune system isn't as strong. And as you guys have now learned from this episode, all of those things then affect your gut and your bloating. So sleeping well is really important. I'm sure some of you have recognized that when you have a plane to catch at 6 a.m. and you only sleep 5 hours, because you have to wake up at 4, you're bloated all day. I get like that, right? And it's because of sleep. It's also because in those situations, often when you've been asleep, you've been stressed. And that's also then caused your body to get bloated. Because as I've said a million and one times, stress and the feeling of unsafety is held in our stomach. That is why you get bloated when you feel stressed, insecure, unsafe, on edge, fearful about something, etc. So what else? Sleep. Something else that can be really, really great is sleeping with heat on your stomach. So in Chinese medicine, we always want blood to flow to the areas that need support. You don't put ice packs on it, right? So when my knee, for example, has been like really sore, let's say I've been skiing a lot, I won't put ice on my knee because that's going to make blood go away from it. Like it'll numb it, but it's not helping it. I put a heat pack on it and the blood rushes to my knee, repairs and heals my knee, gives my muscles all the blood that it needs to get nourished and replenish and heal. And then my knee feels better. If you're bloated or if you're having some kind of stomach issues, put a heat pack on your stomach as you sleep or as you're sitting at your desk or as you're watching a movie or whatever, because you want the blood to rush to your stomach so that your stomach can heal and repair itself. So do not underestimate the power of heat packs as well. I love a good heat pack. And then there obviously are a multitude of supplements that you can use to help. So the supplements aren't something that you want to be relying on, but there are a multitude of supplements that can help you to clean up your digestive system in a faster way whilst you're cleaning up other things, right? Because it takes time to repair our body and to get to the place we want to get to, and supplements can really help speed us up. So if you are joining us in the gut healing class, which I'm very excited for, we have a gut healing class and we have a skin healing class. I will be giving you guys in those classes the supplements that I recommend depending on the gut symptoms that you're having, right? Because if you have like SIBO, so small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, what you're going to need is different for somebody else that seems to have a imbalance in regards to like them not having enough good bacteria, right? A lot of us have a bit of candida is the issue, right? That is like so common. Everyone that comes back to me with like a stool sample, there's some kind of candida in there. The good thing about like supplements and herbs is that they're always just going to bring your body back to balance, right? You're never going to like fuck your gut up where you don't have enough good bacteria because you wiped out all the bad and all the good, right? I learned that a very long time ago from these scientists that I followed, listened to their podcast, and I went to their event, and I was on a course of antibiotics from my jaw surgery, really heavy dose. Maybe it wasn't my knee, it was my jaw. And I went up to them afterwards and I spoke to them and I asked them like, about the antibiotics and like when I take probiotics, it makes me feel even worse. Like, what do I do? And ladies, these are three scientists, right? And they're like experts in gut. And what was really interesting is that they said, don't take probiotics. Your gut, I'm like trying to remember word for word. Your gut, you can never flush out your whole gut microbiome. Like, yeah, antibiotics will take a bit of a hit, but your body and your gut knows how to make more knows how to make more good bacteria. You need to focus on flushing out the bad bacteria, right? So for the infection, for making sure you don't get an infection, etc. Once you're off the antibiotics, don't think about adding in a pile of probiotics, because that could cause more dysbiosis, right? Or dysbiosis full stop. Instead, focus on replenishing and feeding the ones that are already there. And I love this because for me, I always felt like probiotics didn't help me. They made me bloated, they made me gassy. And I was like, this is not fucking normal. Like, I should be feeling good. My whole thing now is keeping my gut balanced. I don't take any probiotics, haven't for fucking years. My gut is amazing, right? And I know so many people, my fiance included when I first met him, that taking all the probiotics, doing all the right things, and their gut is destroyed. There's fucking parasites, there's yeast infections, there's just infections, there's candida, there's overgrowth. Like, there are so many things, and I find it so fascinating. And it's like when we use herbs and when we use medicinal things to bring our body into balance, our body knows what it's doing. It's like we are giving it the support that it needs to then do the function that it's made to do. So everything that I will be giving you guys on like the supplement side in the PDF that you'll get at the end of the gut healing masterclass, and I'll explain it on that class a little bit as well. That is things that are going to help you and bring your gut into balance. It's not going to like throw anything off. It's not going to cause any problems, because I'm not giving you bacteria, right? I'm not saying take this probiotic, which actually could be detrimental, because then you could have too many of that strand, right? You don't want to be then taking a random probiotic and having too much of one strand of bacteria, because that's going to throw everything off balance. Your gut knows what to do. You just want to give it the right environment to thrive in, right? So come to that healing class if you haven't already. Booked your spot, because not only will I be giving you guys those things, but we're going to be going through healing all of the energetic components that are causing these gut issues as well. Okay, the last thing that I want to go into is, does your body feel safe in letting go of protection? So I did an episode a while ago last year around like weight and energetic weight and losing weight, and kind of what is all wrapped in to I can't lose weight and why can't my body lose weight. So I want to just like hang tight with me. We're just going to do this for like 5 more minutes and then I'll let you guys go, I promise. So when clients come to me and they have been trying for a while, let's say, to lose weight, but it's just not budging, it's often because their body deep down doesn't feel like it's safe to let go or to let something go. They're holding on to something. They could also be protecting themselves from something, right? Like essentially they, or maybe you, are keeping this protective layer around you because of maybe fears of being seen, fears of judgment from others, fears of thinking, losing weight isn't quote unquote self-love, thinking they'll be looked down on if they are not the weight that they're currently at, but they go back to the weight they used to be. Let's just say, for example, fears around changing their identity. If they've wrapped their identity in their weight, for example, as it currently is, let's say that you are maybe overweight and you've gotten a lot of your identity from that. Don't judge anybody if that is not you, because that is a real thing, right? So if you're like, what the fuck, that's ridiculous, that is actually a real thing. We can like warp our identity to be linked to a part of us that is a trauma response, but we don't want to let go of. Right? Like we can link our identity to our acne. And if we were to let go of our acne, it's like, well, then what do I have to complain about? Or what makes me me? Because I've been sharing my journey about acne on Instagram for 7 years. And if I all of a sudden don't have it, then like, who am I anymore? Right? So we can literally keep ourselves stuck in these situations because we're not allowing ourselves to evolve. We're not trusting that we're allowed to develop and to evolve our identity, right? Maybe, for example, you've also got this fear of not being able to use your weight as an excuse anymore, right? There are so many things that can be held in our weight or if you are feeling like you cannot lose weight, there can be so much stuff around safety. So if that is you, I'm guaranteeing almost that you are struggling with holding your weight around your stomach. And so that's also going to be another reason for you to come to this healing class. But just remember those reasons of why you might be holding on to excess weight, right? So when you are always having these conscious or unconscious fears that are constantly running through your nervous system, through your vagus nerve, your body starts to cause some serious disruption to not just your gut microbiome, but your adrenals, your immune system, your ovaries, your muscles, your heart, your lungs. Like all of these things hold an energetic capacity and they are all interwoven, right? So think about the flow of healing one thing is then also going to heal other things. So the flow of healing your gut is going to help with your skin. It's going to help with your immune system. It's going to help with your stress. It's going to help with your mood, your libido. It's going to help with all of these things. So if there's one thing that you take from today, hopefully it's a lot more than one, is that I want you to know that by healing your gut, you're also going to notice an effect in other areas, and you may not even know how bad you feel right now until you feel this good. So many people don't even know that they feel shit until they feel so vital and healthy and energized all the time. So I hope that you guys learned a lot from today. We've already gone 42 minutes. So I had those questions that you guys wanted to ask. I will do another Q&A episode answering those questions. I will not forget, to not worry, they are written down. So hang tight for those. But a lot of the questions that you asked, I've indirectly answered in this. So I hope that everybody got what they came for. But as usual, I try as much as I can to do Instagram lives. So make sure that you are on our email list, that you are following me on Instagram, that you're doing all those things so that you don't miss out when I have an Instagram live, because that is your chance to ask me questions. That is your chance. Also, obviously, if you're in the behind the scenes bubble, I do quarterly lives in there as well to answer questions, and I give heaps of details in those. Oh, and for the What Would Monica Do, for those of you wondering about that, because I did it and then it's like, oh, where's it gone? Is that there has been so much that I've been trying to give you guys in these episodes, and it's honestly been, I'll be really honest, too much to do 2 episodes a week. So what I'm actually going to start doing, for those wondering, is that if you're in the behind the scenes bubble, if you leave a What Would Monica Do, I will answer those What Would Monica Do questions in the behind the scenes bubble. So they're still going to get answered. And maybe I'll put some on the podcast. But that's what's going to be happening from now on, just because I want to focus on delivering you guys all these juicy episodes, and I just can't do 2 a week right now. Things are full, things are busy in a good way, and I'm overflowing, and I have to just manage my time as best I can. All right. So if you guys have any questions about anything, send me a message. I hope that you love this episode. Please, please, please subscribe, leave a review, send it to a friend, and I will see you guys on the next episode talking all things about skin.